What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we're going to have a little bit of a different episode of what's on our table because I got a chance to play Hero Quest continuing down the track of campaign games if you saw our previous video. However, Julie was traveling, so we haven't had much time to play at all. And we did get a request from viewer Matthew Colwell, so I just want to say thanks for the great idea to talk about some of our favorite campaign games. Two of them have been on our top 10 list, I think, almost every single time, which is Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, Descent, 2nd edition, or Legends of the Dark. We kind of mashed them both together, but today we'll be talking about Legends of the Dark. And then another favorite, but I don't think it's quite as high on the list because it's been a while since we've played it, which is Folklore The Affliction. So what we will be doing is talking to you about the 3 things that we like the most about each game, trying to, help you pick which one you should play, and then talk a little bit about the negatives, probably give you 1 or 2 negatives. Now, normally Julie does the preamble, but since I'm the one that set up the video, I'm the one that got the idea from Matthew, I kind of just ran away with it there. So I'm going to be quiet and let Julie decide where we're going first.
Let's talk about our favorite.
So you want to start with Journeys in Middle-earth. I think that'll be the easiest one. This is a conversational style show, completely unscripted, so expect some back and forth. Probably a lot less starting with Journeys than maybe when you get the folklore and things like that.
Yeah, so I think we both agreed that the part of Journeys to Middle-earth that we like the most is the story aspect of it.
Yeah, it feels like Lord of the Rings.
It really, I think it's the one that the one campaign, in my opinion, the one campaign game that does it the best. The story really is integral to what you're playing, and the decisions you make really have an impact on the story, the outcome.
And one thing I will say is that story got better and better and better throughout all the expansions. It felt more and more like you're in the world of Tolkien. Now, you might find personally that another game's story is better when it comes to having a story that feels like the IP, brings you into the world of that IP and lets you live it. I don't think Journeys in Middle-earth can be beat. And I think that is definitely the key selling point of the game.
My second favorite thing is I think it's unique, but I mean, you're the one that really knows everything else. But the way the game, the mechanism, the cards that you have, and what you're playing, in order to be able to play.
Yeah, so you mean like playing the cards to get successes, the way that they're related to your traits. Now, it is not entirely unique. We did play Heroes of Terranath, which had some cards that you'd be playing for different successes that you're pulling from your deck. So the cards for success aspect is not unique. However, the inspiration and everything else that comes along with it, the integration with the app, the fact that you've got other heroes that can potentially help you out with some of their own skills and even do some things across the map, that is very different. So it's never really been implemented in the exact way that you see it in Journeys. But the flipping cards over...
No, I know. Sorry, you explained it very well. That's what I mean, is the way that you do it and the way you integrate it. And I'm not going to repeat everything you said, but what Jason said is what I'm going to say. It doesn't happen very often.
No, and I don't really have any more points to add in terms of like the top 2 things because I love the gameplay aspect of the game. I think Julie got that right down to the T. I love the story. Those are like the 2 biggest aspects. And the other thing that I think I really enjoy about the game, and more so in the later campaigns, is just like the branching story, like the way things branch out, the options that you have, and just the entire campaign experience. Talk about the campaign experience going through your progression, going in different directions, and the different characters that you can pick and play. And I feel that the game's got a fair bit of replayability because of that.
Yeah, because we've done it. We've made a mistake, and we're like, you know what? Let's go back and restart the game. That wasn't the smartest move, and we restarted it, and it had a different outcome.
Yeah, we went on a different path.
Not because we tried to go back the way we had gone, and it didn't come out the same way. So, proof that the number of successes and the things that you do definitely do have an impact. So, I mean, those are the top 3. I don't really have much negative. And anyways, I think Matthew was asking for positive. So those are the top 3 reasons why.
Well, I do have a couple of different negatives that we can add to the game. There's only 2. First and foremost, the game is app-based. So if you do not like app-based games, then that may be a negative for you. It is not a negative for us, but it's definitely something that we should highlight when we're talking about this game. Now, the other negative that people might find in the game is that combat is inconsequential. Combat is basically you overcoming obstacles, enemies that are getting in your way of achieving your goals. The adventure and the progression is what you're trying to do, but you don't even get experience for combat. So if you're someone that likes combat, I do like combat, it does bug me a little bit that combat isn't a more integral part of this game. And it's the only real negative that I have, and it's not a big one. It's one of the reasons why it's one of our favorites, but I do feel that for some people, they may be like, I don't really want to be trying to get to the token. I'd rather be like, I'm the strong warrior, I'm Aragorn, I'm going to fight all the orcs. All right. Anything else, or are we good?
I think we can move to the next one.
And as you notice, a lot of agreement here, so not a lot of back and forth. And we're back with our second game. Sorry about the impromptu pause, but editing behind the scenes stuff, we'll keep it a secret. So now we were talking about Descent, Legends of the Dark, the latest in the series, well, soon to be the second latest because they've got a new expansion/sequel game coming out. So hopefully we'll get a chance to play that, but we still have quite a ways to go in the first one. And I think I know what the big negative is going to be coming from both of us for that game. So Julie, take it away.
It's one of our favorite games and you're talking about the negative already. Let me talk about the most positive thing.
I was getting over to you. I was just saying we're probably going to be in agreement.
There is one thing that I think Descent does very well that I love is the way that your character powers up.
Character progression is one of the biggest and most fun things, and it gets even better in Legends of the Dark because of the way the app almost works like a video game. I think Julie's starting to understand now why I like playing video game RPGs with that character progression. She's seeing all the cool crits getting calculated behind the scene, getting the awesome freeze chance and being like, woohoo, we kicked some butt. So character progression throughout the entire campaign is a lot of fun. I also want to add, and I think it really kind of goes together with it, just like the little side missions and the character moments that they do throughout Legends of the Dark. How do you feel about those?
Yeah, those are fun too. I mean, as you know, I really, it's funny, every time we start off, I'm like, I'm such a weakling. And then, by the time you progress, then the game is over and you're like, but I was having so much fun. I was wrecking shop. So anyways, yes, I think it's fun that there's these little side things for each of the characters. But, definitely the most fun is the progression. I think the other thing I really like is there's some pretty good, it feels more like a dungeon crawl. There's some cool things you can find in this game.
Yes, and that also ties into progression, I would say. I don't want us to be like a second aspect. I would say that...
I think it's a second aspect, but okay.
Well, I disagree. I just think it's because you're getting items and the items falls into progression, but I do think it does very well. It's highly worth highlighting.
Well, I don't know. I find that there's things that you find in this more so than, to compare it to...
Journeys to Middle-earth?
I was going to say Hobbitland. Journeys to Middle-earth. The things you find can be pretty boring. I mean, there's some fun stuff, but in this, there's some really cool things.
That is very true. The items and you know what I think a better way to discuss it would be is take it away from let's not talk about campaign. Let's talk about loot, because that's a better way to put it. There is serious loot in Descent Legends of the Dark. You get loot for doing different achievements, which is cool. You get loot from finding stuff, just going through the world, and you get loot from buying stuff. So it's really neat how you get this stuff. And part of the fun of the game and every mission is making sure that you find that loot because you don't want to miss it.
Okay, so what's your second thing then?
Well, maybe this should be number 3 then, and I think you'll agree with me. When it comes to Legends of the Dark, it is the table presence that I love the most. But the 3D terrain, the miniatures, it just looks amazing on the table. I remember when we set it up in front of your parents when we were playing it on vacation, they're like, that's a board game? And they were both fairly impressed as to what we're doing, where we're going, and I really like that. I like the fact that the elevations are even included in the game. You gotta go up the stairs, but if you're on a platform, you can shoot down, and there's rules for that. And they're not overly complicated thanks to the app, making things a little bit more simplified. And I love the way the game uses the app. I think that's something to highlight. It makes the best use of an app, I think, period, from what we've played.
Yeah, so I think we had more than 3 here. I think we got like...
I think we got like 4.
4 in there. But yeah, I agree. So it's funny that we love it a lot. It's actually, it's one of the first real, I'm going to call it real intricate board games that I played. Because I played some, intro to board game stuff.
We played some complex stuff too, but...
Yeah, but this is really the one that we kind of figured out that we enjoyed playing, this kind of game together.
Which was Journeys in the Dark, 2nd edition. Sorry, not the new one.
Yes.
But it's just kind of gone from there. And now we're doing a channel.
So you said you had a couple negatives that you wanted to talk about.
So, first negative is, once again, the app. If you don't like apps, this is definitely not for you. However, this, I think, is the best use of an app ever in a dungeon crawl. So, that's our opinion. Take it with a grain of salt, but...
Well, if they're listening, it's probably because they want our opinion. If they don't want our opinion, I'm not sure if they should be listening.
And the other big one is, and the reason why we've yet to complete it, is the length of the missions. You are probably into a 2 to 3 hour mission minimum. And looking at Journeys in the Dark, Journeys in Middle Earth, I think everything else was 90 minutes to 2 hours. And all of the missions we played so far were really at the 2.5 to 3 hour mark, which makes it very difficult to get played during the week.
Some people love this, and some people are like, what? That's a negative for you? I'm looking for that, evening play. We've said it before. If you are new to the channel, you haven't heard it. Otherwise, you're like, you guys are broken records. But we have a toddler. Actually, he's not a toddler anymore, but a scary
little man.
A little man who decides he doesn't want a nap and who doesn't want to go to bed. So we right now have very little time for ourselves or for playing board games.
Which means something like Hero Quest, which is why I kind of left it set up in front of us, kind of hits its sweet spot at about 90 minutes. Now, we could definitely do it, but it's kind of hard to say Tuesday night, get an hour and a half through something, you're in the middle of your quest, and you come back, a couple days later. So that is the biggest negative, and that's what's really kept it off our table. But we do want to finish it before the sequel comes out. Even if we don't, the sequel will be added to the collection as soon as we possibly can get it. So there you have it.
So you know what? On that note, that's Descent. But hold that thought when it comes to negatives, because I think Folklore, which is the next one we're going to talk about, takes that to a whole other level.
Depending on how you play it. So we're going to have some fun debate there, but we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. So now we're back and we're talking Folklore The Affliction. Now this was quite the experience, probably the only campaign game. Sorry, we've done 2. We played Imperial Assault as one versus many with some friends, but Folklore we completed an entire campaign with friends, and it was a lot of fun.
It was a beast.
It's definitely a beast, especially when you have a lot of the cool components. Now, we're going to save some of that stuff for the negatives, but what was your favorite aspect of Folklore?
I think it's delving into that world that's not an IP. I mean, it was definitely a whole other world, and I don't think it's an IP, is it?
No, but there is definitely some inspiration from fairy tales and folklore.
Well, yes, but
Folklore The Affliction.
Yeah. But it was an interesting story that seemed pretty different. I really enjoyed that. I
like the dark fantasy world. I also like how your characters kind of felt a little bit more like you, because they get a little bit of a backstory, a little bit of a setup, and then once you've named the character, you're kind of taking them through the world, and there's a lot of different directions that you can take it, especially with some of the expansions.
I was going to say, they seem a little bit more dark, and then you say like you, so I don't know what that means. I took my character, but
they seem more like you. Like you're able to bring your own aspects into the character with the decisions that you make throughout the story.
They don't have to be like you. They can just be, you make it your own.
Yes, you make it your own character.
Yeah.
Whereas something like Descent or Journeys in Middle Earth, you're very much more going through this scripted content.
Yeah, in this, in folklore, you get to make decisions that affect how your character, who your character becomes, basically, and how he or she will react.
And it does a great job of capturing that RPG light or RPG elements and bringing it into a tabletop setting. There is no game that has quite done it like that. I mean, we've got Hero Quest here, I mean, you fill out a sheet of paper, but it doesn't really try to replicate that D20 dice rolling experience, which is something that you also get from Folklore The Affliction.
So I was going to say my second favorite thing with Folklore, I think, is the combat.
And the combat is a lot of fun. And they refined it apparently to make it even better because a lot of people didn't like it. But overall, I like the way that it worked. And I think the reason why you liked it so much is because this was your first experience with like Dungeons and Dragons style combat, rolling the hit, rolling damage, getting modifiers, having people able to cast spells to give you bonus modifiers, and things like that.
Yeah.
A lot to track on paper though.
Yes.
And I think the third thing that we liked a lot about the game is the open world aspect of the game. Now, you need to get an expansion to do it, but you could actually just start wandering all over the map, running into quests as you were trying to progress your main storyline. If you go off the path, you get a different experience cutting through the woods. It might be a little bit more dangerous, or you can follow the path, it might take you a little bit longer, and you'll have a couple of different encounters along the way. And I thought that that was just very interesting. It really felt like a role-playing game or a computer role-playing game, like the overmap, like you get an encounter, you're zooming in, you resolve this encounter, and you move on. And some of the expansions really expanded that out. And what's pretty cool is that if you're waiting for an expansion to come out, you can keep your characters and keep progressing them. Now, you might end up with them being incredibly overpowered if you do that. But, that's up to you. Other than that, I also did enjoy this, the fact that the characters are very, very different. But there's a lot of different ways that you can take them to develop them, make them your own, like we said already.
Yep.
So, go ahead, the negatives.
I just think it really, when we played it, it really seemed like a time hog. We played it for hours and hours and hours, multiple weekends. So it just seems like, and maybe somebody loves that, but to me, it always seemed like once we sat down to play this, we were going to be playing for a long time.
And I think part of that was we made some mistakes that definitely dragged on the missions. We always did play it for a long time. Once we corrected some of the mistakes, which was things like forgetting about our bonus damage, we definitely got this pace to come up. But, I mean, it's a table hog. Setting it up, you do not want to tear it down, especially if you're going to be adding in the overworld components, so that you can just quest across the world depending on what the monster that you're using. Like, we were using just the core box and some of the expansions, none of the stuff really from Dark Tales, which we had at the time, and I think this whole table was full. So just the setup time was, it takes a lot. I'm not sure how it would fit in the vault, because we didn't have the vaulted table at the time, but that may make things a little bit more manageable. But easily, once again, you're hitting that, 2.5 to 3 hour per mission mark. And then we finally got it down to about 120 minutes per mission. But there was always a lot of before and after management stuff, so Keep that in mind.
I don't really have anything else to say. I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun. I think that one's maybe a little bit more complicated, not as accessible as the other two.
No, I have to agree with you there. And I think that's it. We've gone through all 3 of our favorite campaign games / dungeon crawls. You may be wondering why some other stuff isn't on there. Well, we probably haven't spent enough time with those games, or they've just been shelved for a little too long, and we only got to dip our toes in them, such as Tainted Grail back there, one of the other ones we want to take out. But I do think following our next review, since we've talked about campaign games and things like that, we're going to jump into Hero Quest, try to get this wrapped up for you soon, and then finally get caught up on some of our review copies by jumping into Mind Management. So it's been a while, but don't worry, it is coming. We've been talking about getting this one out for a few months now, and it is on the more complex side.
So on that note, it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And take a look down below at the video description. You'll find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see some pictures of Julie and I's games that we've been playing, there'll be some on those feeds. I've been slacking a little bit. I'll try to get some up there over the next week or so make sure that you check them out. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release. In front of Julia will take you back to our which game?
Well, our number 1. How's that?
All right, so our review of Journeys in Middle-earth, either one of the expansions or the core game. On that note, we're now going to
grab our drink,
grab our best friend and fellow adventurer, and we will remind you to Keep playing games.